Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Shannon. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and leave a comment below today. Today we're going to start off with a prayer. It is called the Armor of God. It is in Ephesians 6, but you can look it up on any search engine. The Armor of God. I put on and stand firm with the belt of truth buckled around my waist. I am safe and secure with the breastplate of righteousness, guarding my heart from evil, helping me live a life that honors you. I diligently put on the gospel shoes of peace, willing to go wherever you ask of me. I take and stand behind the shield of faith, protected against Satan's fiery darts of doubt, fear, lies, and deceit. Now on my head I place the helmet of salvation, keeping my mind on you. I grab hold in my hand of the sword of the Spirit, the word of Yahweh, sharp and true. I'm prepared to live today in spiritual victory in Yeshua's name. Amen, folks. Amen. And today, we're in the book of Josue or Joshua, and we're going to be reading chapters 6 through 10, folks. Chapters 6 through 10. Chapter 6. Now Jericho was in a state of siege because of the presence of the Israelites, so that no one left or entered. And to Josue the Lord said, I have delivered Jericho and its king into your power. Have all the soldiers circle the city, marching once around it. Do this for 6 days, with seven priests carrying ram's horns ahead of the ark. On the seventh day, march around the city 7 times, and have the priests blow the horns. When they give a long blast on the ram's horn, and you hear that signal, all the people shall shout aloud. The wall of the city will collapse, and they will be able to make a frontal attack. Summoning the priests, Josue, son of Nun, then ordered them to take up the Ark of the Covenant with 7 of the priests carrying ram's horns in front of the Ark of the Lord. And he ordered the people to proceed in a circle around the city with the picked troops marching ahead of the Ark of the Lord. At this order they proceeded, with the 7 priests who carried the ram's horns before the Lord, blowing their horns, and the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord following them. In front of the priests with the horns marched the picked troops. The rear guard followed the ark, and the blowing of horns was kept up constantly as they marched. But the people had been commanded by Josue not to shout or make any noise or outcry until he gave the word. Only then were they to shout. So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going once around it, after which they returned to the camp for the night. Early the next morning, Josue had the priests take up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests, bearing the ram's horns, marched in front of the ark of the Lord, blowing their horns. Ahead of these marched the picked troops, while the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord. And the blowing of horns was kept up constantly. On this second day, they again marched around the city once before returning to camp. And for 6 days in all, they did the same. On the 7th day, beginning at daybreak, they marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. On that day only did they march around the city 7 times. The 7th time around, the priests blew the horns, and Josue said to the people, Now shout, for the Lord has given you the city and everything in it. It is under the Lord's ban. Only the harlot Rahab and all who are in the house with her are to be spared, because she hid the messengers we sent. But be careful not to take, in your greed, anything that is under the ban, else you will bring upon the camp of Israel this ban, and the misery of it. All silver and gold, and the articles of bronze or iron, are sacred to the Lord. They shall be put into the treasury of the Lord. And the horns blew. The people began to shout. When they heard the signal horn, they raised a tremendous shout. The wall collapsed, and the people stormed the city in a frontal attack and took it. They observed the ban by putting to the sword all living creatures in the city, men and women, young and old, as well as oxen, sheep, and asses. Josue directed the 2 men who had spied out the land, Go into the harlot's house, and bring out the woman with all her kin, as you swore to her you would do. The spies entered and brought out Rahab, with her father, mother, brothers, and her kin. Her entire family they led forth and placed them outside the camp of Israel. The city itself they burned with all that was in it, except the silver, gold, and articles of bronze and iron, which were placed in the treasury of the house of the Lord. because Rahab the harlot had hidden the messengers whom Josue had sent to recon Jericho. Josue spared her with her family and all her kin, who continue in the midst of Israel to this day. On that occasion, Josue imposed the oath, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who attempts to rebuild this city Jericho. He shall lose his firstborn when he lays its foundation, and he shall lose his youngest son when he sets up its gates." Now, though the Lord was with Josue, so that his fame spread throughout the land, the Israelites violated the ban. Chapter 7. Achan, son of Charmai, son of Zabdi, son of Zara, of the tribe of Judah, took goods that were under the ban, and the anger of the Lord flared up against the Israelites. Josue next sent men from Jericho to Hai, which is near Bethel on its eastern side, with instructions to go up and recon the land. When they had explored Hai, they returned to Josue and advised, "Do not send all the people up. If only about 2,000 or 3,000 go up, they can overcome Hai. The enemy there are few. You need not call for an effort from all the people." About 3,000 of the people made the attack, but they were defeated by those at Hai, who killed some 36 of them. They pressed them back across the clearing in front of the city gate until they broke ranks and defeated them finally on the descent, so that the confidence of the people melted away like water. Josue, together with the elders of Israel, rent his garment and lay prostrate before the ark of the Lord until evening, and they threw dust on their heads. "Alas, O Lord God," Josue prayed, "why did you ever allow this people to pass over the Jordan, delivering us into the power of the Amorites, that they might destroy us? Would that we had been content to dwell on the other side of the Jordan. Pray, Lord, what can I say, now that Israel has turned its back to its enemies? When the Canaanites and the other inhabitants of the land heard of it, they will close in around us and erase our name from the earth. What will you do for your great name?" The Lord replied to Josue, "Stand up. Why are you lying prostrate? Israel has sinned. They have violated the covenant which I enjoined on them. They have stealthily taken goods subject to the ban, and have definitely put them in their baggage. If the Israelites cannot stand up to their enemies, but must turn their back to them, it is because they are under the ban. I will not remain with you, unless you remove from among you whoever has incurred the ban. Rise, sanctify the people. Tell them to sanctify themselves before tomorrow. For the Lord, the God of Israel, says, you are under the ban, O Israel. You cannot stand up to your enemies until you remove from among you whoever has incurred the ban. In the morning you must present yourselves by tribes. The tribe which the Lord designates shall come forward by clans. The clan which the Lord designates shall come forward by families. The family which the Lord designates shall come forward one by one. He who is designated as having incurred the ban shall be destroyed by fire, with all that is his, because he has violated the covenant of the Lord and has committed a shameful crime in Israel. Early the next morning, Josue had Israel come forward by tribes, and the tribe of Judah was designated. Then he had the clans of Judah come forward, and the clan of Zara was designated. He had the clan of Zara come forward by families, and Zabdi was designated. Finally, he had that family come forward one by one, and Achan, son of Charmai, son of Zabdi, son of Zara of the tribe of Judah, was designated. Josue said to Achan, "My son, give to the Lord, the God of Israel, glory and honor by telling me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." Achan answered Josue, "I have indeed sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. Among the spoils, I saw a beautiful Babylonian mantle, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold 50 shekels in weight. In my greed, I took them. They are now hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath." The messengers whom Josue sent hastened to the tent and found them hidden there, with the silver underneath. They took them from the tent, brought them to Josue and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Josue and all Israel took Achan, son of Zara, with the silver, the mantle, and the bar of gold, and with his sons and daughters, his ox, his ass, and his sheep, his tent, and all his possessions, and led them off to the valley of Achor. Josue said, "The Lord bring upon you today the misery which you have afflicted us." And all Israel stoned him to death, and piled a great heap of stones over him, which remains to the present day. Then the anger of the Lord relented. That is why the place is called the Valley of Achor to this day. Chapter 8. The Lord then said to Josue, "Do not be afraid or dismayed. Take all the army with you and prepare to attack Hai. I have delivered the king of Hai into your power, with his people, city, and land. Do to Hai and its king what you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may take its spoils and livestock as booty. Set an ambush behind the city." So Josue and all the soldiers prepared to attack Hai. Picking out 30,000 warriors, Josue sent them off by night with these orders: "See that you ambush the city from the rear, at no great distance. Then all of you be on the watch. The rest of the people and I will come up to the city, and when they make a sort against us, as they did last time, we will flee from them. They will keep coming out after us until we have drawn them away from the city, for they will think we are fleeing from them as we did the last time. When this occurs, rise from ambush and take possession of the city, which the Lord your God will deliver into your power. When you have taken the city, set it afire in obedience to the Lord's command. These are my orders to you." Then Josue sent them away. They went to the place of ambush, taking up their position to the west of Hai, toward Bethel. Josue, however, spent that night in the plain. Early in the next morning, Josue mustered the army and went up to Hai at its head with the elders of Israel. When all the troops he led were drawn up in position before the city, they pitched camp north of Hai, on the other side of the Raven. He took about 5,000 men and set them up in ambush between Bethel and Hai, west of the city. Thus the people took up their stations, with the main body north of the city and the ambush west of it, and Josue waited overnight among his troops. The king of Hai saw this, and he and all his army came out very early in the morning to engage Israel in battle at the descent toward the Arabia, not knowing that there was an ambush behind the city. Josue and the main body of the Israelites fled in seeming defeat toward the desert, until the last of the soldiers in the city had been called out to pursue them. Since they were drawn away from the city, with every man engaged in this pursuit of Josue and the Israelites, not a soldier remained in Hai or Bethel, and the city was open and unprotected. Then the Lord directed Josue, "Stretch out the javelin in your hand toward Hai, for I will deliver it into your power." Josue stretched out the javelin in his hand toward the city, and as soon as he did so, the men in ambush rose from their post, rushed in and captured the city, and immediately set it on fire. By the time the men of Hai looked back, the smoke from the city was already sky high. Escape in any direction was impossible, because the Israelites retreating toward the desert now turned on their pursuers. For when Josue and the main body of Israelites saw that the city had been taken from ambush and was going up in smoke, they struck back at the men of Hai. Since those in the city came out to intercept them, the men of Hai were hemmed in by the Israelites on either side, who cut them down without any fugitives or survivors, except the king, whom they took alive and brought to Josue. All the inhabitants of Hai who had pursued the Israelites into the desert were slain by the sword, there in the open, down to the last man. Then all Israel turned and put the sword to those inside the city. There fell that day a total of 12,000 men and women, the entire population of Hai. Josue kept the javelin in his hand, stretched out until he had fulfilled the doom on all the inhabitants of Hai. However, the Israelites took for themselves as booty the livestock and the spoils of that city, according to the command of the Lord issued to Josue. Then Josue destroyed the place by fire, reducing it to an everlasting mound of ruins as it remains today. He had the king of Hai hung on a tree until evening. Then at sunset, Josue ordered the body removed from the tree and cast at the entrance of the city gates, where a great heap of stones was piled up over it, which remains to this present day. Later, Josue built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal of unhewn stones on which no iron tool had been used, in keeping with the command to the Israelites of Moses, the servant of the Lord, as recorded in the book of law. On this altar they offered holocaust and peace offerings to the Lord. There, in the presence of the Israelites, Josue inscribed upon the stones a copy of the law written by Moses, and all Israel, stranger and native alike, with their elders, officers, and judges, stood on either side of the ark, facing the Levitical priests who were carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Half of them were facing Mount Gerizim and half Mount Ebal, thus carrying out the instructions of Moses, the servant of the Lord, for blessing of the people of Israel on this first occasion. Then were read aloud all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, exactly as written in the book of the law. Every single word that Moses had commanded, Josue read aloud to the entire community, including the women and children and the strangers who had accompanied Israel. Chapter 9. When the news reached the kings west of the Jordan, in the mountain regions, and in the foothills, and all along the coast of the Great Sea as far as Lebanon, Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Pezerites, Hivites, and Jebusites, they all formed an alliance to launch a common attack against Josue and Israel. On learning what Josue had done to Jericho and Hai, the inhabitants of Gabon put into effort a device of their own. They chose provisions for a journey, making use of old sacks for their asses and old wineskins torn and mended. They wore old patched sandals and shabby garments, and all the bread they took was dry and crumbly. Thus they journeyed to Josue in the camp at Gilgal, where they said to him and to the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant land to propose that you make an alliance with us." But the men of Israel replied to the Hivites, "You may be living in the land that is ours. How then can we make an alliance with you?" But they answered Josue, "We are your servants." Then Josue asked them, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" They answered him, "Your servants have come from a far-off land, because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we have heard reports of all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites beyond the Jordan, Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who lived in Asaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our country had said to us, 'Take along provisions for the journey, and go meet them. Say to them, we are your servants. We propose that you make an alliance with us. This bread of ours was still warm when we brought it from home as provisions the day we left to come to you, but now it is dry and crumbled. Here are our wineskins, which were new when we filled them, but now they are torn. Look at our garments and sandals, which are worn out from the very long journey.' Then the Israelite princes partook of their provisions without seeking the advice of the Lord. So Josue made an alliance with them and entered into an agreement to spare them, which the princes of the community sealed with an oath. 3 days after the agreement was entered into, the Israelites learned that these people were from nearby and would be living in Israel. The third day on the road, the Israelites came to their cities of Gabon, Kaphriah, Beeroth, and Karthajerim, but did not attack them, because the princes of the community had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. When the entire community grumbled against the princes, these were all demonstrated with the people. "We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and so we cannot harm them. Let us therefore spare their lives and so deal with them that we shall not be punished for this, the oath we have sworn to them." Thus the princes recommended that they be let alive as hewers of wood and drawers of water for the entire community. And the community did as the princes advised them. Josue summoned the Gibeonites and said to them, "Why did you lie to us and say that you lived at a great distance from us, when you will be living in our very midst? For this are you accursed. Every one of you shall always be a slave, hewers of wood and drawers of water, for the house of my God." They answered Josue, "Your servants were fully informed of how the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses, that you will be given the entire land, and that all its inhabitants be destroyed before you. Since, therefore, at your advance we were in great fear for our lives, we acted as we did. And now that we are in your power, do with us what you think fit and right." Josue did what he had decided. Well, he saved them from being killed by the Israelites. At the same time, he made them, as they still are, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the community and for the altar of the Lord in the place of the Lord's choice. Last chapter, guys, chapter 10. Now, Adoni-Sedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that in the capture and destruction of Hai, Josue had done to that city and its king, as he had done to Jericho and its king. He heard also that the inhabitants of Gabon and made their peace with Israel, remaining among them, and that there was great fear abroad, because Gabon was large enough for a royal city, larger even than the city of Hai, and all its men were brave. So Adoni-Sedek, king of Jerusalem, sent for Oham, king of Hebron, Pharam, king of Jeremoth, Japha, king of Lachish, and Deber, king of Eglon, to come to his aid for an attack on Gabon, since it had concluded peace with Josue and the Israelites. The 5 Amorite kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jeremoth, Lachish, and Eglon, united all their forces and marched against Gabon, where they took up siege positions. Thereupon the men of Gabon sent an appeal to Josue in his camp at Gilgal. "Do not abandon your servants. Come up here quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings of the mountain country have joined forces against us." So Josue marched up from Gilgal with his picked troops and the rest of his soldiers. Meanwhile the Lord said to Josue, "Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your power. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." And when Josue made his surprise attack upon them after an all-night march from Gilgal, the Lord threw them into disorder before him. The Israelites inflicted a great slaughter on them at Gabon and pursued them down the Beth Horon slope, harassing them as far as Azteca and Macedania. While they fled before Israel along the descent from Beth Horon, the Lord hurled great stones from the sky above them, all the way to Azteca, killing many. More died from these hailstones than the Israelites slew with the sword. On this day, when the Lord delivered up the Amorites to the Israelites, Josue prayed to the Lord and said in the presence of Israel, "Stand still, O sun at Gabon, O moon in the valley of Aelion." And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, while the nation took vengeance on its foes. Is this not recorded in the book of Jasher? The sun halted in the middle of the sky. Not for a whole day did it resume its swift course. Never before or since was there a day like this, when the Lord obeyed the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Then Josue and all Israel returned to the camp at Gilgal. Meanwhile, the 5 kings who had fled hid in a cave at Macedonia. When Josue was told that the 5 kings had been discovered hiding in a cave at Macedonia, he said, "Roll large stones to the mouth of the cave and post men over it to guard them. But do not remain there yourselves. Pursue your enemies and harry them into the rear. Do not allow them to escape to the cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your power." Once Josue and the Israelites had finally inflicted the last blows in this very great slaughter, and the survivors had escaped from them into the fortified cities. All the army returned safely to Joshua in the camp at Mesida, no man uttering a sound against the Israelites. Then Joshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring out those 5 kings to me." Obediently they brought out to him from the cave the 5 kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jeremoth, Lachish, and Eglon. Then they had done so. Joshua summoned all the men of Israel and said to the commanders of the soldiers who had marched with him, "Come forward and put your feet on the necks of these kings." They came forward and put their feet upon their necks. Then Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid or dismayed. Be firm and steadfast. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies against whom you fight." Thereupon Joshua struck and killed them, and hung them on 5 trees, where they remained hanging until evening. At sunset they were removed from the trees at the command of Joshua, and cast into the cave where they had hidden. Over the mouth of the cave large stones were placed, which remain until this very day. Mesida too Joshua captured and put to the sword. At that time he fulfilled the doom on the city, on its king, and on every person in it, leaving no survivors. Thus he did to the king of Mesida what he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua then passed on with all Israel from Mesida to Lebanon, which he attacked Lebanon. Also with its king the Lord delivered into the power of Israel. He put it to the sword with every person there, leaving no survivors. Thus he did to its king what he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua next passed on with all the Israel from Lebanon to Lachish, where they set up a camp during the attack. The Lord delivered Lachish into the power of Israel, so that on the 2nd day Joshua captured it and put to the sword with every person in it, just as he done at Lebanon. At the time Horam, king of Gazer, came up to help Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his people, leaving him no survivors. From Lachish Joshua passed on with all the Israel to Eglon, encamping near it. They attacked it and captured it the same day, putting it to the sword. He fulfilled the doom that day on every person in it, just as he had done at Lachish. From Eglon Joshua went up with all Israel to Hebron, which they attacked and captured. They put it to the sword with its king, all its towns, and every person there, leaving no survivors, just as Joshua had done to Eglon. He fulfilled the doom on it and on every person there. Then Joshua and all Israel turned back to Debir and attacked it, capturing it with its king and all its towns. They put them to the sword and fulfilled the doom on every person there, leaving no survivors. Thus was done to Debir and its king what had been done to Hebron, as well as to Lebanon and its king. Joshua conquered the entire country, the mountain regions, the Negev, the foothills, and the mountain slopes with all their kings. He left no survivors, but fulfilled the doom on all those who lived there, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua conquered from Cadesbarn to Gaza, and all the land of Goshen to Gabon. All these kings and their lands Joshua captured in a single campaign, for the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Thereupon Joshua with all Israel returned to the camp at Gilgal. And that is it for the day, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Thank you, and have a blessed day.